What's up, guys? Thanks for tuning in. Coach Andy and I really appreciate all you listening and sharing the podcast. If you find what we're doing valuable here and you're interested in supporting the show, we just launched a membership website. We got 3 different levels of membership that you can join. We're going to try to get you as many perks as possible for doing that, whether it's discounts on programs coming up, getting you involved with Q&As, or we got some merch that we're planning on dropping soon. If you're interested in doing that, you can go to powertechhockey.ca. Enjoy the show, guys. We are going.
Okay, so the song Amanda that you were just playing from Boston, we always, again, we like to start our day off with a little bit of tunes, and you like to pull out some good ones. Boston's a group that's amazing.
Yeah.
Did you know what happened to the singer?
I do.
Suicide, right?
Yeah.
Do you know how?
Gas. I think he gassed himself.
Is that what it was?
I think so.
Because it was like they were really good, then gone. I didn't know why, but...
Did you know that he finished his career? He's like one of the best singers ever as a male.
Like, he's really good.
As
like,
a male.
As an adult now, like when I was a kid, I used to like the sound of the music and all stuff. I thought guys just yelled, but like as you
appreciate it more now.
Appreciate music a little bit more. He's a really good singer.
Yeah. So my dad's not going to listen to this, but if you do, Dad, if I butcher this example, sorry. I'm pretty sure at the end of his career, he was playing in a Beatles tribute band. So he wasn't even making his own music anymore.
Say it again.
So when at the end of his career, before he cut the cord on himself, he was in one of the best bands ever.
They were amazing.
Really good band. Maybe not one of the best ever, but whatever. Really good band. He has one of the best.
Flipping a coin.
Yeah, one of the best vocal ranges on a male ever.
Right.
And end of his career, he was playing cover songs in like dive bars.
Really?
Yeah. So for the Beatles, it was like a Beatles tribute band.
Really?
So he just fell off.
So what do you?
Man.
Not that we can dissect what was going on in his brain. Did he just like the grind? He just was fed up, or just like to sing Beatles songs?
Well, you watch documentaries and read books about musician people all the time, and they sometimes just fall off the planet, like for whatever reason. You know, they struggle with whatever mental demons they have. You know. So.
I'm going to talk about that in a minute after we go through a couple things, or maybe I'll just do it right now. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to do that right now because actually this is good. I've been reading the book Phil Knight. It's called Shoe Dog. So Phil Knight is the CEO, the president, the guy that started Nike. Okay.
Why do you say Nike and not Nike?
Because I think it's Nike.
Okay. I've just been wondering.
I don't know. What's the right way? I don't know. To me, do you go ride a bikie?
True.
Yeah, that's how I look at it. Yeah. So,
You don't ride a bikie. You don't ride a bikie.
Huh? I don't know.
The
book, actually, it's called Nike. Actually, it is Nike. But
O-Dog's here still, by the way, people.
So my comparison to this, it's going to actually make sense to hockey too. Is like you said, he was so good. You don't understand where did the mind go? Like what happened? Like life is good. You're a star. I mean, there's mental illness, all the things that happen, but what actually happened? Like, wow. I don't think people actually understand how hard. I don't understand how hard it is to be. Like a top dog, like the best hockey player, the best football player, best tennis player, the best singers, so going back to this, I was reading this Phil Knight. I'm almost done. And on Nike. So people like if you think of Nike, right, O-Dog? If you think of Nike, whatever it is, I'm gonna be all over myself here.
You can say Nike, it's okay.
I know I can. Go ride your bikie. Like
that's right.
I think I'm right.
It's a valid argument. Yeah.
But when you look at Nike, okay, like when you just say Nike, what a huge company. Wow, you just think Nike has always been Nike. Nike's always been Nike, right? You don't think that it was ever anything not Nike.
Yeah.
One of the biggest shoe companies in the world. True?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, I just need some agreement here.
Same thing about Amazon. I think the same thing.
Same thing about Amazon. Same thing about I don't know. Something else.
Yeah.
The NHL is always the NHL, whatever. It's like whatever. But people always forget the beginning process of everything, right? Yep. So I thought, like the little stories I heard, he started selling these shoes. I thought he made those shoes out of the back of his car, and it just exploded. But of course not. Not when you're a multi-billion-dollar company. That's not the way it works. It's not the way it works. You don't just drop on the skates and become an NHLer. Very few do. There's always struggles. There's always adversity. There's always this stuff that gets in your way. Process. And it's the stay-to-itiveness and the desire and the belief. And this is what he said, it's belief. So let me ramble just for a few minutes because I find it very, very interesting. That's why I read biographies.
Yep.
I do it so anyways, I read these biographies. I bought 2 books at Christmas time. I bought the Nike Shoe Dog book and I bought the Mark Messier leadership book. I probably don't think the Mark Messier book is going to be my type of book, but I'm looking at for the kids and stuff like that on leadership principles, right?
Yep.
So anyways, the Nike book is unbelievable. So this guy was a runner. He lived in Oregon, and he was done school, and he went to get his master's at Stanford or Sanford. What is it called? Stanford. Yeah. So he was a very smart guy. Got his master's in business. Came home, said, "Dad, I want to travel the world before I start anything." So he traveled the world and came back, and he started doing a run. He was running, and in his mind, he had this big idea. Didn't know what his big idea was, but he said, my big idea is I want to be in business for myself. I've been around a little bit. I've watched things. I've seen things. I've been in school. Don't want to be like we always say, I don't want to be stuck in working for someone. I don't want to be an accountant. I don't want to have all these rules that I have to follow. I want to do something. And he said, what I want to do is I want to play and I want to be in sports. So his idea of his business it fits his mind. Like it's playing. He's in sports. It's passionate. He says, if I can do that, I'm going to do really well. And then he came across, when he was in Japan, he came across a shoe company. No, how did this go? No. His idea, this is how he got his idea of Nike shoes. He said that the camera industry was taken over. It used to be made by Germans. And then the Japanese started making quality cameras, Minolta and whatever the names are. And they took over the camera industry. And he said it's the same thing in shoes. There was Puma and Adidas. I said that wrong. But Puma and Adidas were the big ones, and they were from Germany. He goes, I think we could do that why can't the Japanese take over the shoe market? So he found a distributor called Onitsuka, and they made these shoes called Tiger and all this stuff, and he became a distributor of shoes. And he said that he ordered like 3,000. He met with these people. He ordered 3,000 or 300 pairs of shoes, sold them like that out of the back of his car. Basically, he'd go to a track meet.
Oh, so he didn't actually make the shoes.
He didn't make the shoes, so that surprised me. I said, "Oh, okay, this is interesting now." So, by the time he made the shoes, there was all this adversity. So he signed. So he would go out and get a loan for $5,000 back in 1962, which was huge money. Yeah. Sell the shoes, and then he'd double it up. So then he'd get 10,000, double it up. So his bankers were like, no more of that stuff. He was producing 1.2 in sales, 1.2 million in sales. But the bank's like, you don't have assets, and we're cutting you off. In the meantime, people are loving the shoes, and he said, like, I believe I can sell shoes. I want to talk about belief in a second. I believe I can sell shoes. I think I got a good product, but he goes, the product will sell itself. So he was selling these shoes, and the company was starting to play around with them and taking away some of his rights and just playing the business games. And late, they take care of the Japanese side first, and then they give him like the leftovers. You get orders where the shoe sizes are wrong, the orders of the shoes are wrong, but he made it work anyways. Got to the point where they were playing games with him that he went to Mexico. Actually, the company that first managed his shoes was called Canada. They were in Mexico. Oh, cool. They thought it was a real exotic name. Anyway, so they started. And so in the meantime, as they were doing these shoes with the Japanese company, he had his running coach from Oregon that coach. Like, he was one of the best running coaches in the world. This is 1962, so no one even remembers. His name is Bill Bowerman. Bill Bowerman was like huge on shoes and turf and all that stuff. He says it makes all the difference in the world. So as they would get these shoes, they would look at the shoes and say, how can we make it better? Well, there's no grip. There's not this. We need more foam here. The tongue should be this. And they started developing ideas. So, which eventually led to a point, like all this adversity. I mean, I'm talking tons of adversity where the guy had to get a second job. He did it for 10 years, getting a second job, working as an accountant for, it's a big company. I forget the name of it. Not sleeping, just working and peddling these shoes and setting up distribution points throughout the U.S. Okay, so I got to take a breath here. So I can't even emphasize enough until you read this book how much adversity it has. You just think Nike is Nike. So then they started making, they went to this manufacturer and they started designing their own shoes. And so they didn't have a name for a company. So the day before they were putting the manufacturing together, they had X amount of time, like say it was noon tomorrow, that they had to come up with their name, and they couldn't decide a name. So his original company was called Blue Ribbon Athletics, or Blue Ribbon Shoes, or Blue Ribbon is what it. So they changed the name, and one of the things was he was in You ever wonder why the name Nike? You know what it is?
It's one of the gods of.
Yeah, it's a
something.
goddess. He was in Greece or whatever, and there was a stadium and a statue of the Nike, whatever, the goddess of victory. So, but he wasn't even thinking about that when they were naming it. They had these other names, and then one of his guys said, "What about Nike? It's a goddess of victory." And he put that revelation together that when he was there, and they said, "Yeah." And then they hired a girl at $35 to design the swoosh, but he didn't know what it was. Just make something look fast. So she made the swoosh, and that's like whatever. When they came on this name, they decided that because they had some other names like Blue Ribbon Shoes and all this stuff. The guy goes, no. All the successful companies have short names like Clorox, Kleenex. Like they're short, they're quick. They have an X or a K that sounds good. So Nike it fits that mold, and
cool.
they went with that. Then they started distributing, and I haven't got. I'm not into the success side yet. But the point is that the one thing he said is, I believe that I highlighted. I should have brought it in. I believe that I can sell shoes. I think I could give a good product. And he said, when you believe in something, that's what makes it work. So think about, he went 10 years not making money. And he said several times in the book, like at any moment, like it could flip and everyone's out of a job. It's the belief that you could actually, like, I don't think he believed that he was going to have a $60 billion company. But he was just shooting to have a good company, good quality stuff. But the belief, like he said, if you don't believe in what you're doing, it's just never going to happen. And I like to say that with, as far as being a hockey player, right? Anything you do, but we talk about hockey, and it's funny because I've seen several times, like you've seen it too, where we have someone that has never played a game of hockey, but they can, you got managers and stuff like that that have never played a game of hockey, but they think that they know hockey, and they have an air of belief about them, like they know what they're talking about, and people just kind of flock to it. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
And as a player, how do you put belief into your thing? Because the biggest thing, like I always struggled with it because of, I didn't come from a whole lot of stuff, but I was a good player. Like I was a very good player, but there was always like, when you're playing against, you just see things and you just start, maybe there's doubt, or a coach can maybe tweak your belief in yourself. And the thing is that if you actually believe without a shadow of a doubt, and that's what I'm talking about, is you got to learn, like to get to the to the elite levels, you have to learn what belief actually is. And an example of that is, you ever had a crush on a girl?
Yeah,
I know you did. But you had a crush on a girl, and you remember the times where, especially when you were young, when you looked at her and you wanted to ask her out, and what would be the thing that stopped you from doing that?
Oh, a lot of reasons.
A lot of reasons, but that's your belief in
Right.
yourself. That's your self-confidence. That's your belief in you.
Yep.
But the day that you believe that you're worthy of asking that girl out, you just go, yeah, I'll ask her out. I'm going to go and say, hey, do you want to go out?
Man, that's so true.
It's 100% true.
So true.
And when you believe in yourself, things happen. And when you don't believe in yourself, you don't take action. You talk and you talk and you talk and you talk and you wish, and you don't take the steps. You just wish that you could take the steps. And it's the same thing when we're playing hockey, is the mountain's over there, and how do you get up the mountain? And a lot of people will they just don't have the belief to say, I'm going to just do it. I'm going to go get my workout in. They go to the gym and they don't believe in themselves. Maybe it's because there's guys stronger. People are going to judge them. And it's like they start beating themselves down. Or they're on the ice and they look at someone that's fast, or someone that's got a mustache or looks 5 years older or bigger and stronger, and their belief starts to dwindle. And it's like the kid that can take their own self-belief and just believe in themselves and say, no, I can dominate this game, and act as though they do, the victory comes after.
Yeah.
The belief in yourself is actually number one. So that's whole another side tangent here. That's one of the reasons why reading books and being around the right people are critical to your success. 100% critical to your success. Because when you have people that push you down or tell you the reasons why you can't do something, if you're not strong enough, they'll win.
Yep.
So one of the things that I think is very, very important as a player, or as a coach coaching hockey or whatever, is that you have a huge belief. And if you believe in yourself, you're going to take the steps to actually succeed. And you're not going to let these little, because adversity is coming no matter how you look at it. And sometimes it looks like, how the heck am I going to do this? But that unwavering belief in yourself and your abilities, or your willingness to do the work and not just talk about it, because talk is cheap, but your willingness to do it one step at a time makes all the difference in the world. Just like the guy from Nike, right? 10 years before he actually became Nike. And then he found what it was all about. Yeah. And then he believes he's got the best shoe in the world. He's got the best design. He's got the best principles. He's got the best integrity. That's what he believes. And it spills out on other people. And it's like, when you walk into an interview in hockey or whatever, people see that belief. Like, trust me, when people ask you about who you are and they start digging into the questions and finding out what you're about, your belief shows in your action, not in your words. You know what I mean? So that's why someone can look you across the table and just say, this is what I believe, this is what I'm going to do. And they can convince people that quickly about their belief.
Yeah. And anytime you listen to like any self-help person or whatever, the first thing they always say is you have to make a decision. You know, you have to decide first that you're going to do something, and then you have to believe that you're going to do it in order to do it. Yeah. And like, what's the other saying I say sometimes? You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink, right?
Right.
Because that.
And I say you can salt the horse's oats.
Yeah.
So there's always a way.
But they have to want to do it. So it comes down, and it comes down to anything. It could be if you want to start going to the gym, if you want to start whatever business, if you want to do whatever you're doing, like you have to actually believe that you can do it. Because everything can be laid out for you. You can have make all the right moves. You can have everything set up and laid out so that you just have to follow one step to the next, and it won't happen if it's not something that you actually believe in or that you think you can actually achieve. Yeah, it won't. And when I like reflect on my own life, there's things where I've been successful. There's every single time there's been no question. Right. Like, so if I've followed through with something and it's worked out. If I track it back and I think about it, and that doesn't mean there was never moments of doubt or anything, because those things happen, especially when you're facing the adversity like you're talking about. But from the start, it was like, I know that I'll be finishing this thing. And there were times where I also believed and it didn't work out, which can also happen. But for all the times where I did succeed, it was like that. I for sure knew that was going to happen. There was no question. And so like that. Actually, I'm gonna transition to what I was going to talk about, because it kind of plays into this too. Yeah. We were talking after the break, so everyone had their 2 weeks of holiday shit fest, basically, where you're drinking and eating and bad habits and all that kind of crap. Yeah. And this was the first year in my life where I wasn't plus 10 pounds after the holidays. So normally I just fall off the deep end, whatever, and enjoy my 2 weeks, and that's it. Yeah. And then I have to kind of backtrack. So this was the first...
Like everyone.
Yeah. But this was the first year that I didn't do that in my whole life, where that hasn't happened since I've been paying attention to my weight, let's say. Yeah. So it took a process, like, for me to get here from the 5 years ago when I started paying attention to it. So the point of me saying that is not, look how great I am, I can control myself. It's when we talk on the podcast about anything we're talking about, we struggle with this stuff too. So it's not meant to come off as preachy or like we're doing all of these things to a T. Like everything that we say, all the advice we give, it's all stuff we struggle with. We're just people too.
Yeah, and it's experience.
Yeah, and these are things we've identified from our experience of struggling with what we're talking about. And so when it comes to all the habit stuff you're talking about, one thing my sister said to me, because I said to my family, I was like, man, this is crazy. This is the first year that hasn't happened. And I remember going into the holidays, I said I was going to do that. I was like, I'm going to try to keep it in check for the holiday and not eat like an idiot and whatever. But 5 years ago, the first thing I decided to do, or maybe longer, 6 years ago, I said I'm going to work out every day through the holidays. I'm going to make sure I don't just sit on my ass and do nothing.
Yeah, you're moving once at least a
day. Right. And that was my step one.
You're going to earn your turkey leg.
That's right. Yeah. And that was kind of my step one going into like trying to get to the point where I can get through it. Because for me, like food, tough to say no to. And so my sister, what she said to me, she was like, man, like I definitely put on X amount of pounds, but I worked out through all the holidays though. And I said to her, I was like, hey man, like that's great. That's because that's exactly what I did 6 years ago. And now I'm just like 6 years further along and trying to get myself in order kind of thing. Right. Yeah. But I wanted to make that point, and it's related to your point, is that, things that we're talking about on here are things that everybody struggles with. But at the end of the day, if you want to, fix something about yourself or achieve something or succeed at something, then it's got to be first that you decide you want to do it and you believe that you can do it. And then you can just keep walking through it. And eventually you're going to get there if you just keep taking the steps. Like there's no choice. If you just keep taking a step towards it, at some point you're going to hit the thing you wanted, you know?
Yeah, you're gonna like, so you make mistakes along the way, because I'm the exact same thing, you know, like for 45 weeks of the year or more, I'm pretty dialed into fitness and eating and doing really well. And it's like there's those occasions where it gets you.
Mhm.
And this is just one aspect of life, but it gets you. So I've been like, for like really actually hard on myself for the last, because probably with age. So not as whatever. It's just not as easy as you get older. So over every Christmas, I'm like, okay, I know this is going to be bad, and I'm going to just dial it right in. It's basically impossible, and that's a bad word to use, but it's basically impossible because there's so many things. There's triggers for me, like when people throw out whatever it is. It could be I don't like dip, so I stay away from that. But if there's crackers, I don't eat crackers. But if they're sitting there, at some point I'm going to start, and I take one, I'm done.
Yeah.
And then I'll eat that whole freaking thing all night. If there's like candied horse shit,
Yeah, stuff you don't even like.
I don't like it, but if it's there, it's just my I take one and then I'm done. I'll eat it and then I go home like, oh man. This last couple Christmases I've been very good, but suck a few beers back and I feel bad about myself, but I've been able to keep it within really good. And this year I did really well. But just didn't. It's a hard season, but the belief. So going back to the belief thing on that is that if you already give up before you start.
Right.
I think, I don't know if you were thinking that, but if you go into Christmas and say, it's Christmas time, nothing you can do, you're just going to eat this, you're going to eat this, and you come back and I'll dial it back in 2 weeks, you defeated yourself already.
Yeah.
Right? You can't leave room for excuses, but you can set up a game plan that you are going to exercise every day, whether that means you're going for a walk or you're doing something really hard, or maybe you limit your alcohol, or maybe you try to limit your plates of food and all that stuff, and you have a little bit more success. But your belief going in is a big difference.
And the opposite end of that is also true, just to be clear. Like, it's not, because what I didn't do going into the holiday is say that I'm going to not eat a bad thing and be super restrictive and then kick the shit out of myself if I make a wrong move or whatever. That also isn't a good strategy. So exactly what my thought process was going in was, I'm going to enjoy myself. I'm going to partake in all of the events and eat and drink and do what I want, but I'm just not going to go crazy and be an asshole about it.
Well, the thing is, you've earned that because you did, like you said, with your studying. You used to say that when in the really tough course of computer sciences and engineering, that people, you couldn't understand that they had to cram before a test, and you didn't have to cram because every day you did a steady diet of studying and getting your stuff done, so that it was like you knew it.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with the fitness and the goals you have in business and stuff like that. Is if you just have a steady diet, you can afford to take 2 weeks where you blow it off a bit. Your body probably actually needs it a little bit. Like it's welcome it.
Well, but even if you're not in the position that I'm in, even if you're somebody who is just trying to get started, if you make a mistake, like if you have a bad day, or if you say before the holidays, hey, for the next 2 weeks, I'm going to be super dialed in, but then you have a day where you just say, forget that, and do all the things you said you wouldn't do, that doesn't mean, it's not like you're a bad person. It's not like you failed in the grand scheme. You maybe failed for today, but you can rebound and then keep going, because it's a swing, right? It's an up and down situation. You're going to have your ups, you're going to have your downs. Progress is not linear. It's a wave. Everyone always talks about that. As long as you're trending in the right direction, and you can get better. And then you just keep taking baby steps like that. Like, another one with me is the weight loss thing. When I do cuts, the first time I ever did a weight cut, it was ridiculously aggressive, and I had so many problems because I did it like that. But now when I do it, it's just like I do it more of a slow and steady, and let the time go by. Like, it needs to take time, So it doesn't have to be a, strictly regimented thing that if you mess up, then you're done kind of thing. That's not. It doesn't have to be like that.
Yeah, and it's just sticking with the fitness a bit. Is everybody does this? I think when you work out. So easy to say, okay, we're going to do this, and you set these lofty goals, and you're going to work out for 2 hours a day, and you're going to get, and that's not the way she works, man. It's just steady as she goes. Yeah. One really nice quote before I end on this one, I really like. I've heard it before, but Phil Knight talked about. So there's this trail in Oregon, and it was kind of like I'm not going to say it's the gateway to the West, but it was, and it was a tough sledding to do this, and it got people out west. Okay, I don't know how to say it anyway. Wagons and horses, and the quote was when people got there, he said, the cowards never started and the weak died along the way. That's a good quote.
That is, yeah.
Because if you look at that in business or in when you make your life commitments, like you want to do this hockey thing, let's just say you got some talent and stuff. This is what happens a lot of times. The cowards just don't start. They talk about it and they have more excuses than a pregnant nun, and they the what ifs and all this stuff, but they just don't take the first step. And then the weak, they let every excuse and every bit of adversity get in their way. Mm-hmm. It's the strong that survive, right? They go through it, they go around it, they somehow figure out, and their belief in themselves is enough to get them there. So that was a pretty neat thing. So that, or Portland Trailblazers, you know that basketball team? You understand the name now? Yeah. They blaze trails to the west. How do you like that, dog?
That's cool.
Yeah, sick, eh? Yeah. That's why you need to read books, kids. Like, I'm being honest, coaches and kids. This is why you need to read books. Like, I know that you don't want to, but you should. There's a Marc Messier book out right now that I'm going to start reading probably in 2 days. Here's why you need to read it. He's considered the greatest leader in all of hockey ever. So if you don't read that book as a hockey player, I have nothing else to say.
I know. Well, I've said this a million times too.
You are who you're out with.
Kids, but kids will say, they'll come in and be like, what kind of stuff do you read? Because we talk about reading a lot. And I'll tell them the kind of stuff I read. And they'll say, I don't like reading. And it's like, what do you mean you don't like reading? It's like, you have to read all the time. So when you're at the restaurant and you're looking at your menu and you're reading what's off the menu, do you hate that? It's like, no. It's like, no, you don't hate that.
Right.
So the content of what you're reading is what you don't like.
Yeah.
So read something you like to read. Yeah. You know, it could be whatever you're interested in. It could be a Marc Messier book. If you like food, if you like fitness, if you like business, if you like biographies, if you like music, there's books about every topic. So saying I don't like reading makes no sense because you always are reading. You have to read all the time. Yeah, you flip through your phone and read.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. The thing is like I always say, success leaves clues. So if you want to be successful at hockey, probably a good idea is to read a Marc Messier book. Yep. Find out what some of the best players, like there's a ton of hockey books out there. That's up your alley. And there's stories. I mean, it's just like us talking to each other, but you get to make your own pictures when you're reading, and you can actually apply that to your life. Like, I mean, I can't even tell you how many things I've got. Like I can rhyme off books from when I was a kid on just hockey. That's how I started reading. Mm-hmm. I was interested in being a pro hockey player. So when I saw the book Guy Lafleur, I read it. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was interesting that he ran 10 miles every single day. And then he smoked a pack of darts every single day too. And he snuck into an arena in the morning to go skate. So is that really interesting to read? Well, for me it was, because what the way I looked at it was, if Guy Lafleur, who's one of the best hockey players in the world, had to run 10 miles a day, I took the cigarettes out because I knew that wasn't good. But if he ran 10 miles a day, I'm going to run 10 miles a day. That was my head.
Right.
Now, did I run 10 miles a day? No, but I started running. That was a good thing. Yeah. Right? The Sutter brothers, they worked on the farm and they talked about how they ate and how they had I took some of the things from there. The Wayne Gretzky thing was, I tried to take some of his principles and stuff like that. I know we're going way off tangent here, but to me, when I look at books, I look at my friends. Those are people that I hang out with. It's giving me information. It's garbage in, garbage out, right? So that's where I'm at.
And just to really beat this to death,
yeah, might as well.
So the book, I was just reading it last night. Actually, I'm still reading that Jordan Peterson book, and I was reading one of the top, I don't know, what are the headers of one of the sections was pick up the extra weight, was what the header of the section was talking about. And just to go back to your point before, it's like when you're being lazy and you're not being irresponsible, or you're not trying to get better in some way, you don't get away with that to yourself. Everyone feels like shit when they know that they're not doing things they should be doing. So why would you not take some responsibility for yourself? Yeah. You know, try to do something better because it feels good to do that.
Yep. Right on.
Anyways, next.
So next, what did we want to talk about without the holidays? There's a question: Is it okay for a player to ever talk back to coach? We just got a couple questions here. Is it okay for a player to ever talk back to a coach? It's a tough answer. There's always a different circumstance. Actually, some coaches like it.
Yeah, some coaches like some bite. Yeah.
Yeah, when you can yap back, it's very few and far between. Probably don't have the best answer for you. Most times, you're probably not good to talk back. It's probably good to have a conversation. But I guess the point when the point or the time where it might be maybe appropriate is when they're just being totally unreasonable, or they're being somewhat abusive to you, whatever that you can, I did do that, or how the, how the hell do you expect me to do that when that's like a total out of total frustration. But I don't know if it's, there is a time, but there's a line that the coach has to cross before you have to get.
Two things on that. One is another Jordan Peterson thing. He talks about how there's always rules for stuff.
Yeah.
So the rule about rules is interesting. The rule about rules is you have to follow the rules. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So the rule about rules is follow the rules.
Yeah.
But then the meta rule is unless you need to break the rules.
Yeah, I know.
So those are the two rules about rules. You have to follow them unless you need to break them.
Yep.
Because sometimes it is appropriate to break the rules. Yep. You got to be honest about whether you're breaking it properly or not.
Yeah.
And example he always uses is, you ever see the Harry Potter series?
No, I'm not going to.
You ever see the Harry Potters? It's really good movies, but regardless.
No, thanks.
Regardless.
I'm 53.
So the kid, they're good movies, man. So
care.
The kid is the epitome of that. He's a kid that always follows rules, but he breaks them when he needs to break them. And that's why he's looked at as a hero, basically. So when you watch hero movies, hero stories, that's why people like heroes, because they follow the rules until they have to break the rules, and then they break the rules to solve problems.
Yeah.
And then the second thing I was going to bring into this was Jocko always talks about how you have to play the game a little bit. So you need to do what's in your best interest. So is it in your best interest to turn around and cuss at the coach? Probably not. But if you think that it's a time where you need to talk back, let's say, there's a way to be strategic about it.
Yeah.
And you mentioned it at the start. It's always better to go have a conversation and, navigate your way around it so that you're not screwing yourself over in the future because you wanted to get an impulsive yell out at your coach or whatever. There's just a better way to do it than talk back per se. Better to go have a conversation instead of just, because at the end of the day, the coach has power over you.
That's right.
If you talk back and it pisses them off, you are just screwing yourself because they can react to that however they want because they have the power. So that's it.
100%.
Yep.
Next one was someone asked what types of roles. Like, do you remember how it was?
Yeah,
so he was to do an episode on it, right?
Yeah, so the question the kid was asking was, he was saying, because we talk about know your role a lot of the times, and in a lot of episodes we touch on that. So he was just kind of asking, what are the different roles?
Yeah.
So you talk about a lot of time, having your three things that you do, and those three things will more or less define what type of role you have if you're picking them intelligently. Yeah. So he was kind of just running through what types of roles, like what could you be, like in each position. So do you want to take that?
So like we can't do it. We could do a whole episode on it, but I mean, it's kind of pretty simple. You're either an offensive player or you're a defensive player. And if you're not scoring, you got to do something to make sure that you're contributing. So, and if you're a defensive player, you have to be really good defensively. So you could be a winger, you could be a center, you could be an offensive defenseman, all these different things. So whatever, there's power forwards, there's face-off guys and all that stuff. But that's only one. That's one general thing. This is what I would say, like, to sum this up. The thing that's missing with a lot of people is in hockey and sports, for guys that to hit their peak, is that a lot of people think like plays are made one and done. Okay, so what I mean by that is, even defensively, you're a defenseman, you're shut down D, and your mindset is shut down. Okay, if a guy comes down on you one-on-one and you poke at the stick and it's a loose puck, the play is not over. That second and third effort is what makes you that much better. If you're a power forward and you take a shot and in your head you're a power forward, you shoot, you go to the net a little bit, but it's that second effort to beat the guy to a loose puck. It's knocking a puck loose, finishing hit, and it's still there, and you grind again and you get it again. It's that second and third effort that's gonna kind of define your role a little bit better. And that's why a lot of times you'll see goal scorers are goal scorers, because there's that second and third effort. And I'm trying to think of someone like maybe a Hyman, a current day guy, that it's like the play's never over. He just keeps going and going. And look at he came into the NHL. So this is why roles are like, know your role, but have the effort that is beyond that role. So you take Hyman, when he came into the league, he wasn't considered a first line guy, second line guy. He was a checker, but he did it so freaking well that he was such a benefit to the high end guys. You put him with like a top line player, and those guys are having their best years. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So like I think that's the number one thing that I would like to see from players. Like no matter what you think your role is, like play that role. But things happen when you have that second and third effort on plays. Like just don't give up on plays.
Yeah.
And people want you around. And then you'd be surprised actually if you're just a checking guy, how many opportunities come on the other side.
Right.
And that's kind of just what I'm thinking
I'm
about
gonna
roles.
tighten up because I want to get a little bit more specific about the actual role part. So I like how you said, I think like the two umbrella categories are offensive or a defensive player.
Yeah.
And then within those categories, you can kind of niche something more specific.
Yeah.
Right. So if you're a checker, let's say, we'll call you a more defensive style player.
Yeah.
But you could also, like you said, you could also end up in a more offensive position if you're a guy that goes and crashes the net all the time and you pick up garbage. Like that, are you not offensive? Like
100%.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think it gets tricky to define which category you fall into.
Yeah.
But if you're a forward, for example, if you're not a guy that on your own is generating a ton of offense, then let's throw you more into the defensive category, let's say. Then within that defensive category, what niche do you have? Like, do you block shots? Do you kill penalties? Do you draw penalties? Do you always finish your hits? So there's basically different skills that you can have playing the game that can more define what your role is. Yep. So a checking guy won't be the same as a penalty kill type guy or a shot blocking guy necessarily. So if I think of a guy maybe like Jerv that we train, I would call him a more defensive style player.
Yeah, for sure.
For right now.
Yeah.
Because he wins face-offs, he's real responsible, he can pick pucks off of guys, whatever. But he's not a checker. Like he doesn't go blow guys up or finish hits all the time or whatever. Yeah. So it really just depends on what niche skills you have. So I think after you see which side of the equation are you on, are you more, let's say, gifted, for lack of a better word, offensively? If you're not that, you're probably more of a defensive style player. That doesn't mean you can't be offensive or you can't contribute offensively or whatever, but you would need help from somebody else to do that, let's say. Yeah. You need to be on a line with offensive players to be offensive. So, yeah,
because an offensive player, right? Oh, like there's a gift there.
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking of like Cass is the guy who's popping him or coming to mind. Okay. So when he plays on a line with McDavid and Draisaitl, he'll get points.
Oh, 100%.
Right? Because
when he feels like it.
Yeah, it's not that he's not offensive necessarily, but if you take him off that line, now he's not really getting points.
That's right.
So that's kind of where I'm drawing the line. So do that. You can do that for yourself. See which side of the coin you're on, and then whichever side it is, then you can do the same thing offensively. Do you pass the puck more? Do you have way more assists than goals? Are you getting 2 shots a shift? Like what kind of, and then you can define yourself based on which niche skill you're good at. Yeah. And that's how you define, because then you really, it's an endless amount of roles because there's all kinds of skills you could be really good at, so that's all I would say about that. And then defenseman, same thing. So that's all I wanted to add on that.
No, I like it.
Cool.
Yeah, it's good. The next thing was, you said you had a question about someone with his dad every time his dad comes to play. Oh yeah. So this is a tricky one. This is a tricky question. So I like the question. We're probably going to talk about this for a bit. So I'm going to read the question to you because I thought it was a really good question and it's not easy to answer. So we're going to kind of go back and forth on it and kind of see what we think. But so this comes from Connor. Connor says, hey Eric, I'm a huge fan of the podcast and the workouts posted on TikTok, and I just wanted to get your answer on a quick question. Throughout my hockey career so far, my dad has been a driving force and wants me to do the best and is hard on me. I find when he watches me play, it puts pressure on me to perform at my best. I find him when he watches me play, which he often does, makes me get in my head, and I often perform worse and make worse decisions just because he's watching. Compared to when he's not watching, I'm much more relaxed and composed. How can I remove the feeling of pressure when he's watching to avoid getting in my own head and it affecting my play? Would love your honest feedback and response. And again, big fan of the podcast. Thanks, Connor. Cool. That's a freaking awesome question, man. It's a good one, and I want to help the player as much as I possibly can. And as I was thinking about it last night, we said there's very simple solutions to this, but I think it's actually a little deeper. So when we said the simple solutions is, well, obviously talk to your dad. Mm-hmm. That would be one thing. But as I thought about that, is like, because I've coached and I've seen dads and I've seen relentless how they just never stop. So sometimes talking to dad just isn't the answer. Dad will just, because here's the thing. And I've done this with my son, and I'm actually a good dad, and I got hockey in perspective. But there's been times where my son has said something to me, but yeah, like I didn't read his body language or his mindset at the time, and he said something. I said, "Well, then just don't work hard." And I was an asshole to him for a split second. Then I saw his little cute face, and I'm like, "Okay, don't do that."
Yeah.
Because so, what does that say? That says that I'm frustrated for me. I want, not him. Right?
Yeah, I agree.
You're hurt. You're embarrassing me, or not. That's not the right word. You're not living up to my expectations, and that's wrong. That's wrong. So, and some parents will never see it, or refuse to, or they just can't help themselves. So it's deeper than that. So that's one. Number two is if it doesn't, if you don't talk, you can't get through to your dad, like on a one-on-one, then maybe you have to talk to mom or like a third party to maybe get the message across. And again, sometimes my wife will say something like, you know, the way you said that or the way you did that. And I go, yeah, whatever. Well, he needs to toughen up. That's what guys do. I'm not saying that's what you should do, but it's that ego and it's that not thinking or not being empathetic, if that's the proper word, because you want to be like a hard ass, right? And it doesn't work. So maybe sometimes that doesn't work. Then maybe you have to talk to a coach or a third party, and maybe the coach can get through to them, or maybe they won't, because some people are just people. Okay, so we can go back to that stuff. The bottom line is that I've seen, and then there's the next stage where a lot of the times it goes beyond just conversation or the furry eyeball. And I've seen, and this was after I'm going to give you two scenarios. When I was coaching, there was a kid, and near the end of the year, I found out, like I knew his dad was nuts. But you can't even imagine what nuts is. Like this guy, what I found out later was, and this is through the other kids, because one of his good buddies on our team used to stay at the house, threw him in the trunk for the ride. For the ride home. Seriously. Pushing the car. Another one is he threw him in the garbage can, because if you play like garbage, you can live with the garbage. Really. Mm-hmm. Hit him with a belt. And this is what I found out after. So I had to be very careful on not just, you know, I addressed it with the kid and stuff like that, and he wouldn't say boo. So there was an issue, obviously, right? And it was a really, really weird situation, because like, what do you do? I have no evidence except for some words, but the kid would like buckle and he was a very good hockey player, still playing right now. Oh, there was another, then I was coaching as well. And one of my assistant coaches, who was pretty respected in hockey, came up to me and says, "Hey, do you think the dad's hard on him?" And I said, "Well, like, I mean, the guy never stops talking about hockey." He goes, "Yeah, but I think this, and I think this, and I think this. I'm going to talk to the kid." And he got in the kid's head and was started asking him questions, but not direct, like just convoluted.
Yeah.
And got the dad in trouble without, like, and then I don't know why he did this. And it like really affected our team and the kid and the dad and the relationship. And the dad asked me, like, I said, "Dude, this isn't me. Like, I didn't even know this was going on. Like, it was a bad situation."
Yeah.
And sometimes, so anyways, so that's that. As far as this player goes, his name is Connor.
Yeah.
So here's the thing, Connor. I'm going to be just straight up hockey guy right now. Okay. Number one, because I don't know the whole situation. So if it's just like when your dad watches, like I let me back it up. When I was a kid growing up, my dad used to sit at the table and just talk about hockey. My dad never played one game of his life. I didn't have the problem that I didn't perform, because my dad thought I was a star. I was a very good player. So it was always, if he said anything about hockey, it was about how great I was all the time and what my future is going to be. And it was always non-stop hockey. And then he'd start cutting up all the other kids, and they weren't good enough. And if there's anybody that gave me any competition, he was tell me how much better I was. And all I'm trying to do is eat the shitty piece of chicken that you made me. I just want to eat and let's laugh. We got my family. It's just nice. So kids need a break, man. They don't, like, they love hockey. My son loves hockey. I love hockey. I love the game of hockey. But when someone starts talking to me about hockey, it's not the hockey that I want to talk about. So it's like, you're driving me crazy, right? So as a kid, you just want to eat. You want to be a kid. That's all. So if that's the situation, he just talks hockey and he wants a lot from you and all that stuff. I understand that's a pain in the ass. I do. I understand, and it's really hard to deal with. And maybe it's a conversation you can have. But as far as the performance goes, it's just in order to be a hockey player, you have to have this thick skin. And it's not even thick skin, actually. It's when you go to play hockey, it actually doesn't matter what anybody actually thinks. So I would just say, what if your dad just put him as he's got a Sarnia Sting jacket on. He scouts for the Sarnia Sting. Does it matter what he thinks of you, or are you going to just go play anyways? So my point is that this is what we talk about all the time about being, as a hockey player, mentally tough as a hockey player. It's what's important right now. When you're on the ice, everybody outside the glass or even on the ice, their opinion doesn't matter. It's you have a job to do, and just go do your job. So if you go and shoot the net and hit the post, or you miss the net, and you look at your dad and your dad gives you the furry eyeball and he loses his mind on it, like, it has nothing to do with how you should play. Inside the 60 minutes of hockey, you have one job to do, is that's to go do your 3 things, or to play the game the best of your ability and enjoy it. Like, you should be enjoying it. And that's it. I mean, like, it's like a scout could say, well, you're not a great skater. Does that mean, well, if he's at the game, I'm not going to be a good skater, I'm going to worry about it? No. And if your dad happens to walk in the rink, or he's at the game and you play better without him there, then that's kind of on you. And I don't mean that like smarten up. I just want you as a hockey player to say, okay, like, the one thing, control the controllables. The one thing I can control is how I play. And if you're thinking, I guess this is the important thing, is if you're on the ice and you're thinking about your dad, and I understand that, like, I'm going even with young guys, that you want your mom and dad to enjoy you play. And I mean, remember being a kid and looking up at the stands when I got a nice goal at my parents, and they'd give me the awesome. And I remember my son playing, and, you know, even up until 2 years ago, he'd be taking a face off where we used to watch him play, and he'd look up and I'd give him a, hey, buddy, I'd like, come on, buddy.
Yep.
And he'd have a smile. Then those are things, but if he's actually engaged in the game, it doesn't matter if I go thumbs up or thumbs down, or take my shirt off, or whatever. It doesn't matter. Your role is to what's important now is to play the game, and all the other stuff is just distractions. And what's happening is you're letting something creep into your game. And if you let, I mean, there's maybe it could get deeper than that, but that's my first response to that.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I'm gonna circle back. I think I'll stick on what you were just talking about first, because I had some of this when I was playing too with my dad.
Yep.
And I'll leave it at that. But it was deeper than that. It's hard to get away from. Like, I remember feeling the heat, and just use maybe another example. A kid that I played with, I remember he used to almost every play, you could see him look up and find his dad. And so mentally, when you know that's coming as a little kid, like, that's hard to deal with. So,
I get it.
So one thing that helped me, along with what you said, because at the end of the day, you have to have a thick skin, and you got to be able to handle criticism. And if your dad is the source of it, that's really unfortunate, but you got to learn to deal with it anyways, you know? So that's the first thing, is that what you said, I think, is valuable. Like, keep in perspective, like, when you're playing the game, you're just playing the game. It doesn't matter who's watching, if your dad's there, if he's not there. You should try as best you can, and I know it's easy to say, but I was there. I remember the same thing. Try as best you can to just focus on what you're doing. And that's a hard thing. But the other part that helped me out and I didn't really start to realize it till I was 16. My dad never played a game either, and of organized hockey.
Yep.
And it was a similar kind of feel, where I would feel the pressure when he was watching me. And I started to realize when I was older, like, what is his opinion actually worth? You know? So you mentioned, okay, like, it doesn't matter what anyone thinks of you, really, but there's a degree.
I know.
Right? I know. So to me, if you were watching me when I was a kid, that was a big game. If Coach Andy was at one of my games watching, that was important.
I understand.
Because you played, you have all these connections, you train all these really high-end players, all this stuff. That's different than someone watching who's never played. So, like, if after my hockey game, if Grandpa comes up to me and says, "Oh, you played really good," it's like, "Thanks, Grandpa." Like, I don't actually care what you think from a hockey perspective. You know, from a hockey perspective, it doesn't matter that you think I played well.
Yeah.
So one thing I started to realize as I got into my teenage years was my dad didn't play. So when he would give me the mental beatdown after games, I started to think, like, you never played.
Yeah.
How can you criticize the job that I'm doing when you haven't done it before? You don't know what it's like to be out there when you have to play with systems, when you have to play with structure, when I'm supposed to play a certain role. You don't know any of that. If you played, like, rec league hockey, or if you played house league hockey, none of that, even up to some levels of travel now,
Mhm.
it's not the same as playing a highly structured, serious game. You know, it's different. And so that was something I started to realize is my dad actually didn't know. So that started to detach some of the emotion that I would feel about it. And I don't know who your dad is. I don't know what the situation is, but maybe that's something that would be helpful for you, is you can start to detach some of that emotion. Like when your dad's getting all fired up and heated up, you can keep in mind he's doing that for him, but maybe he doesn't actually know. So you shouldn't weight that a ton in terms of the hockey performance, you know? So I don't know if that's necessarily helpful or not, but that was something that's something that helped me.
Because the easy thing to do here, because I know we talked to like various age levels and some really high end players listen to this. It's easier to say what I said to a kid that is 18 years old that plays in the WHL, right? He goes, "Oh yeah, just eliminate it. Who cares what dad thinks?" Right? But if you got a Patrick O'Sullivan's dad chasing you around, that's weighing on you.
Yeah,
All of a
deep,
sudden,
man.
you take a sip of a water bottle, and dad, who you don't want to be around, is staring at you, giving you that's different. But a 16, 17, 18-year-old who chooses to have this as a profession, or even 14, 15 that chooses to have a real goal, it's really important that you get your head on straight. But when we talk about 8, because this happens, we see it in the lobby here with guys, 8-year-old, 10-year-old that is just playing hockey, and you got dad crazy. Like kids do want to please their dads and their moms,
right.
and they have to listen to them, and it's sometimes a little bit harder. And that's I think is more of a talk to a dad.
Yeah.
Like we have to address the dads.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really hard because you're right. It's hard to separate. There's probably a point where you can separate. This is hockey. You don't know anything, and where a kid could get emotional when his dad gives him a furry eyeball or changes end to make sure he's hitting the net, or when the dad gives him the get going, like
right.
Fuck, no shit.
Yeah.
And the other side note of that, the side note is, as you were talking about that, is my wife. I'm not beating up my wife here, but it's just a simple illustration of what we're talking about. So my son's started off in the OHL at 15 years old. And he's playing a role that is not easy to play. He's very, very physical, and with physicality comes confrontation, and you just get exhausted. You hit someone hard once, people don't understand. Your body, the air out of your body is gone. Like there's nothing left in your lungs. When you combine that with a D zone or a hard forecheck where your stops and starts, and you throw 1, 2, 3 checks, and you're trying to perform, like you're moving, you're exhausted. So my wife would say a lot of the times, especially in the first couple months, she goes, his shifts seem so short, and she was getting on my nerves about it. Like, and she listens to this, so I'm just being honest. And I would say, he's hitting people. Like, what do you want? She doesn't understand. She never played. She doesn't know what that means. And this is what the dad is like. The dad that has never played, especially at a higher level. Like, I get amazed. Why didn't you stop that? Why didn't you hit that? You keep missing the net. Work harder. All these different things that you're giving them, and you have no idea how hard this is.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
So this was for the dad. It's like, you don't know, man.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to go my perspective. I've played, I've coached, and I train, and I'm in very, very, what's my word? I'm in the game. I actually get it. And there's times where I go out loud to my wife and go, "Oh, that way," or I'll say something to my son. I don't say bad things to my son, but I try to give it like a backdoor compliment or a backdoor think about it and stuff like that. And I catch myself, because if you're not right directly in the game, you just don't know.
Yeah.
And as much as I'm involved in the game, as deep as I am in this game, I still don't know anymore because I'm not there doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't think people really understand what it's like to play against. Like, it's not just as easy to grab the puck, go score, and go take the puck from people. It's just not that easy, because you're playing against people who are of close to equal talent and skill and desire as you, or more.
Yeah.
So if you're playing actually really high level hockey and you're playing against someone that's 3 inches taller and 20 pounds heavier, this is not an easy battle. Yeah. So Dad, you can't say it.
Yeah. All
you can ask for is effort.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna say, because we'll get to dads later too, but talking from that perspective, but some of even if your dad does know, because that's a different situation too. If your dad did play and he's still crazy dad or still getting in your head on the sidelines, all this stuff still kind of applies, right? It's like, you're not out there, man. You don't know what my coach is telling me to do. You don't know what my job is supposed to be. If like, maybe I was tired today, man, like, piss off. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, what we just said, it's not just for dads that don't know. It can go for dads that think they've played as well. You know, because for Connor, maybe his dad did play. I don't know. Or maybe he played some or whatever. So maybe he has a clue. But it's still, this stuff still applies. You know, like, you don't know if you're not there. You don't know what the coach is saying. You don't know all this kind of stuff, you know?
Both know I'm going to be talking about. There's one guy that I train, doesn't play anymore. And his dad would be an absolute
nightmare.
Yeah. Got called up to the NHL and he was getting texts from his dad about how shitty he was in first game.
Yeah.
Thanks, Dad.
Yeah.
Didn't really care for his dad that much. His dad played in the NHL. It's like, is that what you want? Like, is that really what you want? And all you do is create resentment with your kid. And he's trying, man. He's in the NHL. I don't know. And then, but he's in the NHL.
Must have done
he's in the
right.
NHL. What else do you want him to do better?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I want to get to the more into the dad stuff in a second, but I want to circle back because you were talking about the step-by-step kind of thing that the kid can run through, but I want to get more specific about that because kids don't know.
Okay.
So first, before we go to dads, so the first thing that we were talking about is you first need to identify the difference between, or try to identify the difference between something that's abusive or dad's just a pain in your ass, because there's a difference. So if you're a kid, you might not know. That's why this is a tricky topic, right? Because it's hard to know. So if it's something where you feel like you're being emotionally abused or physically abused, even worse, then you need help. Like, you need someone to help you. That's not, if you're 14 or 17 or whatever, it's not up to you necessarily. You shouldn't have to deal with that on your own. So you need to go get help from somebody, whether it's mom, whether it's grandpa, whether you call the cops, whether you tell your coach, whether you do something. If it's serious then that's, so we're not talking about that. We're putting that aside for the conversation. So first of all, that's the first question. So assuming it's not abusive, that's kind of what I'm going to focus on from now on. So the first thing we said is you should try to go talk to your dad. Okay. So this is something that I wish I would have done. And this is what I said to Connor when I answered him just briefly. I said, try to go talk to your dad. And that's something I wish I would have done when I was younger. But it's hard, man. You're a kid. It's hard to go have a mature conversation when you're a kid. But that's the first step, because at least you're bringing it to his attention, because maybe he's just a little bit over the top and he doesn't know that that's what he's doing. He needs someone to center him again, to make him realize, hey man, you're going a little bit too far with this. So what would you say as dad? Because I have my own opinion, but if you're the dad and your kid's going to come talk to you, what should kids say to dad? Or how do you approach the conversation with dad?
So you're asking me, you're my son, you're asking me.
Yeah, what should your kid
just
say?
Shut up, basically.
If Charlie was going to come talk to you and say, "Hey, Dad, relax." What is Charlie? No, not. I'm saying, what should the kid say to you? Like, what would you tell a kid to go say to your dad?
This is what I'm saying. I'm reasonable. Right? My son could talk to me. I actually take what he says. So I.
But let's assume, because we're going to escalate it. So assume Dad's reasonable. Assume it's just a conversation that he needs.
Yeah.
What do you say?
Dad. It seems like all we ever talk about is hockey, and I don't want to talk about hockey that much. I'm trying my best, or like along those lines. Yeah. Like I feel
like you're putting a lot of pressure on me.
Yeah, I feel like you're putting a lot of pressure on me. All we ever talk about is hockey, or you always think I could do better, but I'm actually trying my best, or Dad, when you talk about hockey, it makes it less fun. Those are kind of kids' words. It makes it less fun, or
even when you're watching, Dad, when you're watching me, like, it makes me mess up, like, or it's making me feel like I can't play well or whatever.
That would be like number one.
Yeah. Okay. So now let's assume that doesn't work. So Dad not having it. Dad, you get into an argument about it or whatever. Again, assuming
because I could tell you what most dads honestly, most dads are going to say. Well, you say you want to play hockey, and I'm paying for it, and
for sure,
blah 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 blah.
100%.
Tell them how stupid.
100%. So, assuming first line of defense fails, now we have to escalate. So, next step that you said was maybe you need to go talk to a third party or someone. Go talk to mom, talk to somebody. So, what advice?
Well, obviously, it'd be mom.
Okay,
right? I believe mom or grandma or something like that.
Yeah,
and I would say like, It's really hard for kids to do.
I know.
But I would say to mom, like, Mom, Dad won't leave me alone about hockey. That's kind of, and then she'd probably say, like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
Well, just that all the time, he's always talking about hockey and how I could do better, or he's always never happy with my hockey, and I'm trying my best, and it makes me feel like whatever it makes me feel like.
Yeah, I can't play. Feel pressure.
Yeah, and I just want to play hockey like I'm doing my best.
Yeah, that's good.
That's where I would go with that.
And then
you talk to Dad and tell him to leave me alone.
Right. Yeah, and then
because I talked to him already, and he yelled at me.
yeah, seriously. And then you said about you could if you're stuck, you could bring coach into it too.
Yeah,
if you need to.
I mean, you got to be comfortable with your coach, and I would have been with my Mr. Rose for sure. I would have been comfortable with, but I would be like, hey, coach, my dad keeps talking to me about hockey, and I don't know how to get him to stop. Because I don't know how they would say it. Then maybe the coach would say, like, what do you mean? How does he say it? And get a feel for it.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a line of defense that you can go to as well.
Yeah.
If you feel safe, right? Like, you got to feel safe about that. This is the hard thing about kids. You got to feel safe.
Well, that's why I brought up the coach thing, because we said third party, but maybe mom's nuts too, right? I don't know.
Mom can be nuts, or maybe mom talks like in my house. Like, I'll just be honest. When there's hockey talk, I'm the boss.
Yeah.
My wife always says that. Well, you don't have to make all the decisions. I go, I actually do.
Yeah.
But I say that I include my wife, and I explain to her why, and that doesn't exclude her from raising my son in the hockey environment.
Right.
Because there's times in the hockey environment, she reads things with Charlie, and she goes, "There's something wrong."
Yep.
Like right now, like there's something wrong. I don't think he's eating, and she gets on him, and you know what I mean.
Well,
like,
it's some opinions are more valuable than others. Like if mom's a doctor and dad's a carpenter, you're not going to dad for your health problems. You know,
you're not getting your mom to build you a bookshelf.
Yeah. Right. So that's some opinions are just weighted higher. You're an expert in hockey, so obviously what your opinion is weighted.
But I talked
heavily.
to my wife about it.
Right. That doesn't mean you're a dick about it or you're excluding her or anything like that.
No.
So so just recap, and then we'll go to dad. So first of all, is it abusive or not? Let's assume it's not abusive. If it's abusive, you need to get help for that.
Yeah.
Try to talk to your dad. Let him know how you're feeling, whatever. If it turns into an argument and that fails, which I would say likely it won't work if dad's super nuts about hockey, then you have to go get third party to help you, whether that's mom, coach, grandpa, grandma, someone that can maybe help relay the message. Those are your 3 lines of defense. So hopefully something there on top of the mental thing that we talked about earlier, where what's his opinion worth? You need to just focus on yourself while you're playing. You got to be able to deal with some adversity, or develop the thick skin and all that kind of stuff. So hopefully that gives you some help in what you can do to deal with it. So if that isn't good, hey, follow up with another question about what you personally can do, because I want to let you go on dads now.
Yeah. So dads,
there's so much to say.
It's moms too. The moms too, but dad, mom.
I feel like there's so fair to say more commonly dad. That's the overbearing, over-involved, but mom can definitely be a problem too. So moms you can take the advice as well.
Yeah. So the first word that comes to my mind when I think of hockey dads is seriously.
Yeah.
No, seriously.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah.
I don't even know if you have to know about hockey, to be honest with you.
I don't know what you mean. What do you mean?
Like to be to know that you're not right. Like what I mean by that is, I've used the example of Charlie on a piano. If I gave him piano lessons and like he was okay at it, I'm almost positive. I know I'm positive. He's not Billy Joel.
Yeah.
And he's not Elton John.
Yeah.
And he's not Liberace. Thank God. Right? But I know for a fact that if you tickle the ivories, he's not Liberace, Elton John, Billy Joel, whatever.
Yeah.
I know that for a fact.
Yeah.
So why, if my son was going to piano lessons and a recital and all that stuff, would I ever lose my mind? Does it make sense?
Yeah, but for that matter, even if he was,
okay. And this is the thing: if he was, I'd know it.
Right.
And I'm not even in music. I know there's something there. And you know who else would? And other people would tell me. not just Buckshot that lives next door or the grade 7 math teacher. Someone of your dad who is a music connoisseur, is that the word?
Yeah, it's a good word.
If he said, no, dude, your son is
good.
the next, like he is like really good, like phenomenal good, like make money good.
Yeah.
Then I might go, oh, what do I do? And I would follow that direction. And if that's what my son wanted to do. Now, he could have all the talent in the world, but he might not want to be a piano player. So like me pushing him and losing my mind and getting him up at 6 a.m, having a coffee and staring at him and making sure he doesn't make one mistake on the piano. If he doesn't really want to do it, then it doesn't matter anyways.
Yeah.
He's got to have a passion and love, because no matter what he does on that piano, he's got to be so good to make something out of it, and then he's got to have the desire to do it.
Yeah.
And then I just flipped that to hockey. Unless you're stepping on the ice, and 8 years old doesn't count. Unless you step, but it's an indication that there might be some skill, but that's just enjoy the goddamn thing. Enjoy the game. Enjoy watching your kid. You will know. If you question if he's good or not, he's not going anywhere. You have to be the best guy on the ice. Pretty much. Before you need to get excited about this. Before you make your kid's life miserable. Before all your family talking is about hockey and your work ethic and stuff. It's like, it just doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah.
So when I look at all the guys I've trained, you know who I knew was going to play in the NHL? Ekblad.
Yeah.
And Cass, I was very sure that he was going to play in the NHL.
Henny?
No, I didn't know if Henny would for sure.
Interesting.
No. And these guys are solid $5 million players.
Yeah.
I knew Zach and I knew Ekblad for sure were going to play in the NHL. And no, Zach, I was very sure. That's like a lot of players that have come through here.
Thousands.
Yeah. My son?
Don't know. Yeah.
All I know, no, I don't.
Right, of course.
So, not being a jerk, when my son grew up, he was very good. He is not Connor McDavid. I'm going to say that right now. He has a chance, and I'm only saying this right now. My wife will. If my wife was here, if I'm lying, I'm dying. I told her 2 years ago. She goes, I said, I don't see how he's going to play in the OHL in 2 years. I even said the year before. I said it might not be ready. So I always left that backup plan. Like, if he wants it, I'm going to support him. But I'm not going to lose my shit, because I understand how hard it's going to be. He's not Liberace, thank God.
Yeah.
Right? He's a very good hockey player. He plays in the OHL, and he's given himself a legit shot at getting drafted, and giving himself a legit chance of becoming a professional hockey player. I don't lose my shit. Never have. Because it's up to him. So to lose your mind and only talk about hockey, it's what are you doing? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Yeah, well, it's unfortunate that the kid even has to ask a question like this. Like, think about the question. Like, I got a 16-year-old that's writing and saying, my dad is making it really hard for me to enjoy my childhood of playing hockey. Like, that's basically the gist of the question.
I know.
So there's the two things, the whole example you just gave. So if you're not Connor McDavid or Crosby or whatever, then, hey, Dad, relax. Like, let the kid enjoy the game. That's the first thing. And if the kid is Crosby or McDavid or whatever, he's better than you.
He's better than everybody.
So, like, leave him alone, man.
No, he's better than everybody.
Yeah, he's going to figure it out. Who are you to tell him how to play? You weren't as good as him. Like, leave him alone. And that doesn't mean you can't give him advice or guidance or support him like you're saying you do with Charlie.
100%.
You should do all those things when you're being a good dad. But don't make it worse. Like, don't make it more difficult than it's already going to be super difficult. Even if you're Crosby, it's going to be more difficult than anything else you could do, even if you're Crosby. It's still very difficult. Every day, day in, day out, you got to do the same shit. Take the beat down every day in, day out, even if you're the best guy. So what I was going to say about the example that came to mind, I remember seeing an interview with Crosby's dad. And I don't know how Crosby's dad was with...
He used to be a goalie.
I know he used to be a goalie, but I don't know how he was with Sydney. I don't know if he was...
I think pretty good.
Yeah, I don't know if he was nuts. I never heard a story about him being nuts, but let's assume he was fine. I remember watching him in the interview. The dad was saying, you know, like some of the plays I see him do, like I don't know where he learned that because it wasn't
Yeah.
from me.
Yeah.
You know, and that is the perspective. Like, have some humility as dad. Like, you probably don't know best about what to tell your kid on average. On average, most dads don't know what to tell their kid if they're trying to pursue being a hockey player. And you have to keep that perspective, man. Especially if you're a dad that didn't play. Especially. I'm not saying, and this will go back because people are going to give us heat about, well, you don't have to play to know the game and all. Okay, whatever. You haven't played, man.
Yeah.
So that is still worth something. You haven't played. So for you to sit there and to make your kid feel like that, like, have some self-awareness. Have some self-awareness. You want to have a good relation. It's not about hockey. You want to have a good relationship with your kid. You want your kid to grow up and hate your guts. Is that what you want? Because that's what's going to happen.
So the thing is that most people, like everyone says it to me. I know he's not going to play in the NHL. We don't need an NHL. Like, everyone says that.
Yeah.
So if you say that, then what is the issue?
Mm-hmm.
Now I understand. So this is where I do understand this, that, you know, like if my son's going to do the dishes, I want him to do the dishes properly. Wash them, dry them, put them away. Do it because it's important.
For sure.
It's important, man. And if I'm going to pay for him to play hockey, I have an expectation. And my expectation is that he works really hard, like he tries hard. And if he puts in some extra time, then it makes me happier to see that he enjoys it. Like, but it's not for me, man. So as a parent, if I understand, I really do. I totally understand as a dad. I don't understand why they get so caught up, but they get caught up. And there's a part of me that understands that you want your son to do well, like, and work hard and all that stuff. So if you're reasonable, you're watching and you're not judging, you're watching, and then you can look at it and say, I don't think it's his best effort, and I can talk to him about that. That's reasonable. Yeah. And a reasonable conversation is Eric, I'm watching you play, and I feel like you're not giving it everything you have, and you can have a rebuttal to that, and maybe I understand, and maybe you just don't work hard. So there's a red flag number one, right there. If you always have to tell him to work hard and try hard and practice, it's over, or it hasn't started. There's nothing to get excited about. You've got yourself a kid that plays hockey.
Yep. If
you got someone that works his nuts off and practices all the time and eats, breathes, and sleep hockey, now you got a hockey player possibly. But other than that, you got a kid that plays hockey, which is most of you.
Yeah. Which is
period.
Fine. Yeah.
No, it's totally fine. It is what it is. That's what it is. So, but I understand that dad.
Look, let me jump in, because
yeah, sure.
I remember, because I'm going to project onto my dad.
Yeah.
The reason that he was so hard on me, my dad's parents never let him play. They wouldn't pay for it.
Yeah.
So then I start playing, and he sees I'm pretty good, and now he's thinking, if I'm not working hard or whatever, like, wow, you're wasting an opportunity that I never got when I was a kid.
Yeah,
and it's like you take it a bit personally as dad, but this is where that self-awareness thing comes back into it. So I feel like for you, it's almost easy. I feel like that's what I see with a lot of dads. Dads that probably didn't play or didn't get to play or weren't as good as they wanted to be or whatever. And now they see their kid, assuming he's a higher level travel or whatever player, they see their kid has a little bit of skill or is one of the better players on their team. And now they jump at the opportunity to get their kid something that they didn't get to have or whatever. And that's that living vicariously through kind of thing that people always talk about with their parents doing. You're living through your kid because you didn't get to do it, which I can understand. I can understand. But it comes back to that self-awareness thing, right?
Yeah.
Like, you have to understand that your kid isn't you. Your kid only knows what he knows. He's either going to play or he's not. It's going to be up to him. All those things that you said, you know?
I think the other thing is, like, I guess we love hockey. Most people around here love hockey and they love watching your kids. And I don't know where, I just don't understand how it becomes a personal thing. Like, you know what I mean? As an adult, how it becomes personal.
It shouldn't.
That your son's performance validates your life in a way. Like, I've had so many conversations, and some has been with family about their kids, and it's talking to a brick. Like, it's not even a conversation after a while. All they talk about is the hockey, so it goes back to your question, is who are you doing it for? And I think parents, that's the number one thing, is you have to, who are you doing this for? And how you do this is like in the book, Eckhart Tolle, what's it called?
Power of Now.
Power of Now.
Yeah.
Really powerful thing he talks about is that if you can get your own head, for example, if you're driving a car and someone kind of cuts you off and you yell at them, if you actually ask yourself, why did I do that? And go in your own head and see the process, you're going to see that it's actually stupid, that you've lost control. And if you're aware of your thoughts and see your thoughts, then you're going to act differently. So if I was a dad and I start snapping on my kid or start doing like hockey, I'm playing for whatever, the Windsor A team, not the triple A team, the Windsor A team or triple, it doesn't matter. And my kid's hockey is starting to eat at me, or I'm snapping at my kid, my wife, and I'm losing sleep, and I feel like I have the need to bring them all over the place. What I would suggest you do is you go into your thoughts every time you do something and just say, ask yourself or see yourself doing those things. And you're going to look at it and go, I'm not reasonable right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But
like
if you have any sense,
if you have any sense, if you have any sense, because what you're doing is it's at the end of the day, I could probably safely say your kid's not making hockey. I could probably say that. I mean, there's going to be someone say, yeah, but my son is better than your son. Okay, well then your son might, but your son is probably not going to make it. And it's a really sad thing that.
Well, I want to take it.
Wow.
I want to take a layer deeper on this, because I think what I said, option one, like I was saying, like some dads, they didn't get to do it and they're doing the living vicariously through. I think the other thing that, and we talk about this sometimes, some parents in general, not just dads, moms and dads, they're not happy with their own life. And this is their escape to something else. Yeah. So maybe they don't like their job. Maybe they don't like their wife or their husband. Maybe they don't like their family dynamic. Maybe they don't like their social situation. Maybe they don't like their friend group. Whatever combination of those things. And their kids' sports is a door to something else. Social life, all that. Yeah. So they latch onto it because this now is the center of their life. Yeah. And to some degree, it ends up being that anyways, because like I know when I played sports as a kid, we were running around all over the province playing baseball, playing hockey, and that ends up being your life. When the weekend comes, you're taking me to my sports. That's 100%. What happens. And I understand that.
And I understand mom and dad want you to do it as hard as you can.
Right.
I get it.
But there's a very, very distinct line between that and we're also not saying to not ever push your kid or to give him shit or any of that. But there's a line between that and now you're making this about your life. Yeah. And a lot of parents, I think, do that. So it's either they're living vicariously through because they didn't get that when they were a kid, or it's the center of their life now, and it's all the joy they get in life now, and they grab it and just want to talk about it, and everything about their life has to center around their kids' hockey. So what I'm going to say to mom and dad about this, dad especially, is don't put your shit on your kid, man. Yeah. Don't put your shit on your kid. They're a little kid. They can't help it. If you have a teenager or younger child and you're doing that to your kid, get a grip, man. Like what you said, have some self-awareness and identify what you're doing, because I promise you, when your kid grows up, you'll have no relationship with them at all, and that's going to get increasingly more important as you get older, which I'm sure you talk about all the time. All you want to do is hang out with your kid. That's what you want to do. And I'm sure, I'm not a dad, but I'm sure as you get older, the importance on having those relationships probably ends up being a pretty huge part of your life.
You said you probably end up hating your dad, and I don't know if that's the thing, but you're gonna resent certain things.
That's a better way. That's what I mean to say. Yeah.
Like that's when I think of, or I laugh at my dad, not with him. My dad is not alive. Yeah. But when I think my brothers and I, we will look at this absolute lunatic, and he wasn't like beating me and telling me I was shit and work harder and stuff. He was just like constantly wanted, and I can say this 100% true, that my dad, I was his ticket. I know that for a fact. My mom told me that. It was very, very clear that my dad, I was his meal ticket. He said it to me before about buying a house and all this kind of stuff. And it was very important for me to succeed. And when I look back on it now, it's like you have no idea. Like, I didn't even find it to be pressure, but you had no idea subconsciously the pressure that puts on a kid, to like, how about you? My dad was a butcher. Cut meat, man. So I could turn those tables and, like think about it, right? If you're going to be that hard on me on a sport, you think I should do it? Well, you're working for somebody. Why don't you start a butcher shop? Why don't you why don't you go make $1 million in your business? Tell me why. If you worked harder and put time in and put your money aside and did all the right steps, then you could have a life and you wouldn't have to worry about mine.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Well, then that's why I can't stand it, because a kid doesn't know to think that. The kid's helpless, man.
Right.
You're the boss of the kid. You're the dictator.
Boss of the kid.
You're the dictator.
Yeah.
So your kid doesn't have a lot of choice. Your kid isn't going to know to say that. You go do it.
My wife, it's funny because we have a grandchild now. And I love her. Amazing. And my wife said to me, she goes, you're an anomaly, because I can take that baby, and I've done it with my son, and I'm good with babies, but when someone's important to me, I feel like, and I explained this to Avery the one day, not explain it to her, but I just said, this is a blank canvas, man. Right? So I might even look like I'm over the top weird, and you've seen it, that baby comes in and I talk to her and I just play around with her and I'll say things to her, and it's just like I exude so much love on her. And I did that with Charlie. My wife said, Andy, you're actually going to kiss his cheeks right off. I couldn't stop. It was love, 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 love. Like, and it's still like that today. But my point to that is that I have a role in this kid's life, right? She's 1 month, 1.5 months right now. I actually have a role. You might say, well, like that's 6 weeks or 8 weeks. Not really. Yeah, no, I do. She feels love. And that every time she comes around, I want her to be able to look at me and be a safe place and a good place. But my point is that I have a role in taking this blank canvas and making it something good, right?
Yep.
And that's what you have with your kids. Is the hockey is such a great tool to have something good with your kid and father-son relationship. For me and my son, it's not everything, but it's like the bond. It's the glue. It's the glue that holds us together. Not holds us together. That's the wrong thing, but it's like such a common bond.
Yep.
And we can talk, everything in life can go back to hockey as an example. The hard work, every lesson in life comes back to that. And that's what makes it so special. And if I treated him any other way, then we wouldn't have that. And that canvas would be a ugly painting instead of a beautiful thing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, man.
And it's really important. And if parents could just look at that and just, I was just thinking, like, as you were talking, just in the lobby on certain mornings when the dads come here, and I know the intentions. You know who I'm talking about?
Yep.
There's a group, and I sit there and I go, they've got their coffees and they talk, and they're comparing other kids and stuff, and we're talking young. And they're not my clients, but I'm going, wow, those kids have no choice to get. This is the truth. There's a few of those kids that have zero choice. They're getting up 2 days a week at 6:30 in the morning on the ice. Not their choice. Once they're on the ice, do they look forward to playing hockey? Yeah, I'm sure they do. But they're training, and they're little kids. They don't have a choice. Those dads make them come here. Come on, man.
Yeah.
Come on. It just doesn't make sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
But dads, that's the thing, is seriously, man. Seriously, just step back. Look at, if your son is actually a superstar, you will know. There would be no doubt about it. And if he is a superstar, there's nothing you need to do now. There's not one wrong move you can make.
And I think the important thing to throw on the end of that is again, we're not saying that you can't be hard on your kid, or you can't give them shit when they need it, or you can't whatever, because a lot of the way my parents raised me, they were both of them, my mom and my dad. My mom was soft. My dad was more hard, but they both would deliver the same kind of messages.
Yep.
And that is a lot of the reason why I'm in the position I'm in today, because they were hard on me. Like, there's a certain standard, and there was things that weren't acceptable. If I came home with less than an 80 on anything, what the hell, bro? So they were hard on me. And if I got over 80 on things, it wasn't like good job. It was like, that's expected. That's you just hit baseline. Yep. That's not a reward, like baseline. Yep. That's it. So there's a lot of good things that come with being hard, but again, there's a line between that and now it's actually damaging to their development. And you know who ends up paying the price in the future? It's going to end up being the parents. Yep. Because the kids are going to have some resentment towards you because of whatever yep. you thought you were doing in their best interest, yep. even if it was good intentions. So it's important that you're self-aware, you analyze what you're doing, how are you behaving, is it appropriate? and it takes, you know, a level of common sense to be able to do that. But hopefully, if you know, look yourself in the mirror as mom and dad, and you can see whether you're going overboard or not, you know.
Yeah.
So I'm good with that. If you have anything else you want to add on that to finish up?
No, I'm good. I rambled quite a bit today.
It's all good.
But yeah, I know it is all good, and it's almost like a message that we talk about a lot because it actually needs to be addressed. If I have to step back, not saying, like you said earlier in the podcast, we're not perfect. We don't do everything right. We're not sitting here on a podium telling you how life works. But everything we're saying in this podcast it's through my experience or your experience or our experience training kids in hockey, and it's just, that's what it is. So we address this a lot because it's a question and a topic that comes up a lot. And I guess the biggest thing is that if you're a dad and a mom and you're doing this thing, really, like, if I give you a homework to do, is to step back and evaluate yourself like you should do in every part of your life and say, am I reasonable here? Am I expecting too much? And if you think that, like, really, if you're 35 or 45 or 50 and your son's hockey deserves the attention that you think is worth losing your mind and going overboard, spending money and being the only talk at the table and fighting with your wife with, if you think that's the right thing to do, then go do it. Go do it. But I'm sure if you look at it and you sit there and just be reasonable, and you turn a mirror on yourself and look at your actions, I can guarantee you, if you're honest with yourself, you're going to look at yourself and not be happy with what you see. And that doesn't mean you're a bad person. The good part is that you're actually seeing it now. And now it's time to do something about it, and it is what it is. Yeah. Treat it for what it is, and that's all I have.
Yeah. So for any, because it's a tricky topic and how to deal with it. If you're the kid, especially. If you're a mom and dad, it's a little bit easier. But
the kid's the victim here. The kid is, like you said, the kid is just a kid. You're the boss of your kid. When you want to sit there at the table and talk about your kid about hockey, how he's not doing well, he doesn't have a choice. He can't get up and smack you in the head. Yeah. He can't say, get out of my house. He can't do any of those things. He has to take it. Think about it.
Yeah. So I think that's good to leave on that. If there's any more specific example or follow-up questions about it, because I know it's tricky to navigate, and we just gave like some general guidelines, but you can always send us a message or whatever. We'll see you guys next week.